Welcome to Good Grief Mama. I'm Allie, wife and mom of 3, and this is a podcast for honest conversations about motherhood and marriage and homeschooling and homemaking. So if you've ever felt called to do motherhood or marriage just a little differently, or if you've ever wondered, why is no one talking about this? Then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you're here. This episode is sponsored by Restore Your Core Physical Therapy. Mamas, whether you're pregnant, postpartum, or your kids are in college, your body deserves some TLC. The doctors at Restore Your Core Physical Therapy get it. From pelvic floor therapy and birth prep to fixing that back pain that you've been ignoring for way too long, they've got you covered. With locations in Carmel, West Carmel, Zionsville, and Greenwood, expert care is close by. Visit restoreyourcorept.com or call 317-597-6323. Make sure you mention the Good Grief Mama podcast to get $50 off a 90-minute evaluation or $25 off a 60-minute evaluation. You've been taking care of everyone else, and now it's your turn. All right, Good Grief Mama listeners, welcome back to the Granny Ways series. I hope you guys enjoyed your weekend last weekend and took the time to honor those who fought for our country and who gave their life for our freedom, and that you were able to enjoy some time with your family in that celebration of what people have sacrificed for us. And this week, I want to jump right back into the Granny Way series because not only have I been feeling that strong call to slow down and just kind of go back into the quote unquote granny ways is what I'm calling it. But part of that is I've been really, really thinking through what is it that my kids will actually have from me one day. And I feel like that sounds a little bit morbid, but I'm not meaning it necessarily in like I'm done tomorrow kind of way. But like, I want to be thoughtful about what I am going to leave for my children and what I'm going to pass on to them and how they remember me and how they remember our family and what they carry on and give to their kids too. So there has been a shift in my thinking. And that shift kind of started with like the stuff, like seeing all of the stuff that we have, like toys and gifts and just stuff. And the shift kind of shifted from we don't need tons of gifts at Christmas and tons of gifts at birthdays and tons of, you know, gifts for everything. I feel like this is a little bit of a side track, but like, when did it become a thing that we as parents are supposed to create these magical moments with like all these gifts for these little minuscule holidays? Like, I saw for St. Patrick's Day, a few people on Instagram and like Facebook and stuff, they put like green in their toilets and like little leprechaun feet or something like on the toilet seat. And I was like, what? St. Patty's Day? I don't even know what St. Patty's Day is really. And when I was a kid, all we did for that was if you didn't wear green, you got pinched. And that was at school. So it's like, why are we making it such a big thing? People are getting like matching shirts for St. Patty's Day and like the presents when they wake up from on St. Patty's Day and little leprechaun pee. It's like, well, when did that become a thing? It's not a thing. Fetch is not a thing. Let's not do that. I've never done elf on a shelf. That's just so much stress. I would never do that. Sorry if you're an elf on the shelfer. But anyway, bringing it back, we don't need to have all these like gifts and this consumerism that is just rampant, like these gadgets and all these influencers online making it seem like you just need the next new thing and your kids need this and blah, 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 blah. You just don't. And so my shift was from all of that stuff to really like, what am I going to give and leave for my kids? What are they going to get from me? And one of those big things is land. Like, we have a lake house and I'm very blessed to have that lake house. My grandmother bought it. My grandmother and grandpa bought it. They passed it on to my dad. He has passed it on to us. Like, so that's amazing. And I love that we have that. But nowadays, so many people, they don't even own a house or land. And I want to own land. If we are blessed enough and we are financially savvy enough, I want us to have land. It doesn't have to be huge amounts of land. It'd be awesome if it was. But I want us to have land that we actually own. Like right now, yes, we own our house. It's not even an acre. that we're on. And we can't even do what we want in our land, on our land because of regulations and because of HOAs, which there is a definite time and place for HOAs. I agree with that, but it's very restricting. Like there's only so much space I can do for gardening and, all that kind of stuff. So I want to own land though that we can pass on to my children. And maybe if it's big enough that maybe we could have a house on and they could build a house on, that would be awesome. A little family compound situation going on. I also started thinking through like recipes. We have a few family like recipes that my parents would make for like everything. So, like every Thanksgiving, every Easter, blah, 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 they would make this salad called fumi, and I love it. And I never have that recipe. I think I have it on a picture somewhere in my phone. Um, and it's like I want that recipe. And so for my kids, I started this notebook, just writing it down. Actually, a friend was doing it and I copied her. So I bought a notebook and I started writing down our recipes that I make all the time or that the kids really like or that we really like. Part of that was because I couldn't find my recipes anywhere. It was like I saved it on Instagram or I saved it on Facebook or I saved it as a screenshot or, I saved it on Pinterest and they were all different places. And so I just decided to start writing them down in this notebook so they were all in one place. But then I was also like, well, this would be a great thing that we can pass on to my kids and they can be like, oh, what was mom's sourdough recipe? Oh, there it is. It's in the book. I want that. I want the, oh, this is my great grandma's recipe. Oh, this is this recipe. I want to be able to pass that on to my kids. And traditions, I want to be able to have just a couple of things a year that we do every year that we can make a tradition. It doesn't have to be a million things. It doesn't have to be St. Patrick's Day leprechaun pee, which I guess it could be, but it doesn't have to be that. But just a couple of things that we do every year that it's like, this is our tradition, so that even when our kids get older, it's not a million things that they have to try and cram in with all of their family and their spouse's family then. It's like these are just a couple of things that we just do as a family. And then skills, like learning skills that are like self-sufficiency skills. Learning how to garden, learning how to make your own bread or do sourdough, how to fix things. That is something that has been a huge blessing in my life. And I know not everybody has this, but like when I was growing up, my dad could fix anything. My grandpa could fix anything. And my grandpa did fix anything. And now my husband can fix anything. Like, even if he doesn't know how to, he looks it up on YouTube and figures it out. And I want that to be something that gets passed down. I don't want my kids to have to be in a place where they have to pay someone to come and like fix something for them. I want them to be like, oh no, my dad taught me how to do this. I'll do this. So I want to pass down those things. I want to pass down the skill of gardening. I want to pass down, which I'm currently learning. I am finding that gardening is a big trial and error. And so I think it's going to take until I'm an old person to be able to pass down all these skills. But at least then I will have done a lot of the trial and error and they won't have to start at scratch. um, Sourdough bread. I love sourdough bread, first of all. It's just delicious. And I want to pass that down to my kids. I want them to be using the same starter that I'm using. And, that just be like a generational thing that we pass down. And lastly, the last thing I was thinking of was like healthy habits. I want my kids to, they do currently, which I really love. They come to the gym with me. They come to the gym with my husband. They do workouts at my husband's gym. Like when they do like big gym wide workouts, they get t-shirts and stuff and they do big gym wide workout. We come and do it with him. And I want my kids to have that healthy habit of it's good to work out. It's good to move your body and get strength. And we do 5Ks together, like our Thanksgiving 5K, which is one of those traditions that I really hope sticks around. I'm not going to hold on too tightly to it when my kids, have their own families and stuff, but it's just really nice to get moving on a day where people usually just sit and eat all day. I want my kids to have those healthy habits that we pass down. Those are things that, they can then pass down to their kids and their kids and so on and so forth. And I think a lot of this stuff is more, they're bigger themes than just, oh, I want my kids to be able to garden. It's a bigger theme than, I just want my kids to have cool toys or the best of everything. We spend thousands of dollars at Christmas just because we want them to have the new scooter or the new whatever. I don't want that. I want there to be a legacy that we're leaving rather than just consumerism and consumption. I want it to be that we're teaching them things rather than just giving them things. I want it to be where they're establishing roots and developing a community around them rather than just a temporary type living situation. One of my friends who has like her family all kind of lives in the same area, and they were talking about like, oh, we're this generation of Carmel people, which is like a city around here. This generation of my city, like all my family has lived here. We know these people, we know those people. And it's like, I want that to be a thing for my kids. I don't know if that's going to be this city that we currently live in now, but I want there to be a community around them where they have roots and they're not just like a temporary living situation, if that makes sense. So, how this kind of ties back to my granny ways, even too, is I feel like in previous generations, a couple of generations ago, this was just kind of naturally built in where farmers, they had land because that was their livelihood. And they passed that knowledge on to their kids because they needed help. They needed help and they wanted to pass this on to their kids. So their kids would eventually need to know that. And so it's like, okay, there's land, there's skills, there's the time together as a community, building and working together and learning how to fix things and, all that kind of stuff was just a natural part of their life because that was their livelihood. And other cultures too have, I feel like, this more built in, where when I went to Guatemala, there were grandmothers and moms who were sitting around together making tortillas with their kids. And it was like, oh, this is abuela's way of making tortillas. And it's like that, that's passing on knowledge and skills and, the legacy and grandma's recipe and, all that kind of stuff. So I want that, but I feel like it was a little bit more tied in other cultures and just a couple of generations ago. So I think because of that, we're going to have to be more intentional about it. Make time for this and really make sure that we're paying attention to do it. Because if we just keep going on about our life and, bippity bopping along on how we're doing things now, then we're not going to do it. We're not going to achieve it. You have to be intentional about this kind of stuff. And a good example is like, it's a little example, but a good example. A couple of months ago, I think it was in the fall, the kids and I were out walking and we found this like yellowish ball, basically, that had fallen from a tree. And there was a bunch of them all around the bottom of this tree. And I don't know anything about trees, like what type they are and that kind of stuff. And I didn't know what it was. And so I took a picture of it and sent it to Chat GPT. And Chat said that it was probably a black walnut. And so then we started Googling black walnut and we were like, is it safe to eat? And it's like a couple of things came up different ways about whether or not it was safe to eat. And I was really like, man, this is kind of confusing trying to find this online. And then I remembered that my grandma, she knew a lot about plants and trees because she would talk our ear off about trees and plants. So we called her and we said, hey, we found this yellowish ball thing. And I sent her a picture of it and I was like, we don't know what it is. And she said, oh, that's a black walnut. And I was like, okay, so is it safe to eat? And she said, yes, it's safe to eat, but it's very bitter. So a lot of people don't like it, but she does like them. And she said, oh, but they stain everything. They used to use black walnuts to stain clothing and all this kind of stuff. And she said that she likes them and that they used to run over them with cars to like crack the nut and to like not stain their hands or something. Anyway, so instead of Googling, or we had already started Googling, but instead of continuing to Google, we just asked my grandma. And now I know, and my kids know. And we tried it. We tried the black walnut. It was very bitter, and I'm not a fan, but we did try it. And now we know if we ever need to stain something, we can just go pick up a black walnut. But it's that kind of stuff, like being intentional about reconnecting to the people in your life who might be able to pass on that knowledge and trusting that more than like Google or nowadays Chat GPT or what's the new one? Clyde. Anyway, there's probably lots of them. I think also we have to be intentional to become experts, quote unquote, or like tradesmen instead of just relying on our computers. Really truly learning skills and learning trades that we can pass on to our kids. Because nowadays there are so many inventions and improvements and whatever that have made life much easier for us. and lots of things that we can do where we wouldn't have to learn those skills. We wouldn't have to learn how to make bread because the store has so much of it. In fact, you don't even need to learn how to make sourdough because there are sourdough stores now popping up that you can buy sourdough from. And it's like, there's so much around us that makes things convenient and easy that we don't have to learn to be tradesmen. You can call a plumber, you can call a handyman, all that kind of stuff. But I really think I would like to slow down and learn trades that I can pass on to my kids. I've already talked about gardening a bunch. I've already talked about canning. And for example, my grandma, my dad's mom, she's passed away now, but she taught me as a kid so much about art and painting because she was a wonderful artist. And there was one skill that was so cool. And I actually just passed it on to my kids and we used it for our homeschool group too, was watercolor. You would do a watercolor painting. Yeah. And then you would get water and put a little bit more water on it and then get coarse salt and put the salt over the top where the paint was like pretty heavily watered. And it would create this cool, almost like tie-dye effect. And so we did that with our homeschool group. And it's that kind of stuff, the little knowledge, like the little tricks and the little trades, passing on to your kids, like my grandma did to me. And I don't want my kids to have to call a stranger to fix stuff. I want them to know how to fix it or to know that, dad's friend Tom can do it or, that mom's friend Nicole can do it. Whatever it is, I want them to either know how to do it or to be able to connect with somebody that we've already connected them with because we had that person in our life, like a community, less outsourcing and more connecting with our community so that we have those roots to fall back on. The same kind of goes like I got a Cricut machine, so now I can make our own shirts for like family reunions, or we're going to do a cousin camp this year. And so I've been creating a design for our cousin camp t-shirts and just all that kind of stuff, finding little ways that you can tie back into skills and trades that you can pass on to your kids. Because I want to leave a legacy for my kids. I want to leave something more than just stuff. I want to leave something that is of worth, something that is going to be beneficial for them and that's going to last. And really, this whole tie back to the granny ways series, and specifically now considering what I'm going to leave behind for my kids, I think the goal for me is not to give my kids everything because I'm not going to be able to do that. But I think it is to give them something that's going to last, whether that's a skill, a trade, some land, a community, whatever it is. So if any of that resonates with you, leave me a comment, a rating, a review, share this episode with a friend, share this episode with your spouse so that they can hear this too. And you guys can start brainstorming. What is this legacy that we want to leave for our kids? What is the substance, the thing that's going to last, or the things that's going to last that we want to leave for our kids? And while you're at it, make sure you sign up for my free weekly email newsletter. And I'll be back next week for this awesome Granny series.